The African savannah stretched out like a vast canvas under the bleeding hues of a sunset. The air, thick with the scent of dry grass and dust, carried the distant cry of a hyena. My name is Elias. I've been a wildlife ranger in the Serengeti National Park for over 20 years, and I've seen things that would make a novelist's imagination pale. But what I witnessed that evening was something different. A story of survival, of a mother's fierce will, and a miracle born from despair. It was late, and I was on my final patrol loop. The engine of my old Land Rover rumbled softly, a familiar lullaby in the wilderness. The radio crackled with static, a welcome sound after hours of silence. As I rounded a kopje, one of those granite outcrops that rise like ancient monuments, I saw her. A lioness, heavy with cub, was drinking from a small muddy waterhole. Her belly was so swollen it swayed with each careful step. She was alone, a vulnerability in a land where strength in numbers is the law of the jungle. Suddenly a shift in the air, a silent alarm. The lioness's ears perked up, her massive head lifting from the water. She sniffed the wind, a low growl rumbling in her chest. Then I saw them. A pack of jackals, their lean bodies a blur of motion, emerged from the tall grass. There were a dozen of them, maybe more. Not a typical threat to a lioness, but their numbers were overwhelming and their intent was clear. They were starving, and she was an easy target. The jackals began to circle, their high-pitched yaps cutting through the evening stillness. They didn't rush in. Instead, they tested her, nipping at her flanks, darting in and out. The lioness, burdened by her pregnancy, was slow. She swatted at them with her massive paws, a tired fury in her eyes. I gripped the steering wheel, my heart pounding against my ribs. I knew the rules. Interference was forbidden. This was nature, raw and unforgiving. But watching a pregnant mother being hunted, a part of my humanity screamed to act. She let out a mighty roar, a sound that usually commanded respect and fear, but the jackals were relentless. They saw her weakness and were determined to exploit it. One of them managed to nip her hind leg, and she stumbled, a pained snarl twisting her features. She was tiring. The fight was leaving her. The pack, sensing victory, closed in. This story is a fictional drama, a dramatized tale inspired by the incredible events of the wild. If you're enjoying this story, please consider subscribing to the channel to follow the rest of the journey. The lioness collapsed onto her side, a low, exhausted moan escaping her throat. The jackals swarmed her, their sharp teeth tearing at her legs and flanks. I couldn't watch anymore. I revved the Land Rover's engine, the sudden roar of the motor shattering the quiet of the savannah. The jackals, startled by the unfamiliar sound, paused their attack and looked toward my vehicle. It was a brief moment of hesitation, but it was all the lioness needed. With a final desperate surge of energy, she thrashed her head from side to side, forcing the jackals to back away. She struggled to her feet, her body trembling, and limped toward a thicket of acacia trees, a final refuge. I watched helpless as the pack regrouped and began to follow her, their yaps a predatory chorus. It was a race against time, a final, brutal pursuit. Just as the first jackal was about to reach her, a shadow detached itself from the encroaching darkness. A large male lion, his mane a dark, magnificent halo, appeared as if from nowhere. He wasn't the lioness's mate. I knew all the dominant males in this territory, and this one was a stranger. His presence was a stark, powerful command. The jackals, accustomed to their cowardly aggression, froze. The male lion let out a roar, a deep, earth-shaking sound that carried a primal warning. He didn't chase them. He didn't need to. The sheer power of his presence was enough. The jackals, knowing they had met their match, scattered into the darkness, their yaps fading into the distance. The male lion walked slowly toward the exhausted lioness. She was slumped against the thorny acacia, her breath coming in ragged gasps. He didn't approach her with the usual dominance of a male lion. Instead, he nuzzled her gently, a gesture of concern that was almost human. He lay down beside her, his massive body a protective shield against the dangers of the night. It was an extraordinary sight, a stranger, a rogue, offering comfort and protection to a vulnerable mother. It was a moment of true, unselfish compassion in the heart of the wild. I spent the night in my vehicle, a silent witness to a scene that defied all I knew about the wild. The male lion, the stranger, remained by the side of the pregnant lioness, never leaving her. The early morning light filtered through the trees, casting long, peaceful shadows. The lioness was still alive, her breathing shallow but steady. The male lion was awake, his amber eyes scanning the horizon, a tireless guardian. Just as the sun began to warm the earth, a lone vehicle appeared in the distance. It was Sarah, a fellow ranger and a good friend. She drove up to my Land Rover, her face a mask of concern. "Elias, are you all right? We've been trying to reach you." I gestured toward the two lions. Sarah's eyes widened, a mixture of awe and confusion on her face. "Who is that male?" "I've never seen him before." "I don't know," I replied, "but he saved her life last night." As we watched, the male lion, satisfied that the lioness was resting, stood up. He walked a short distance, then let out a series of low roars, not the roars of a predator, but something else, a call. And from the direction he was roaring, a young lioness emerged from the tall grass. She was smaller, and she approached him with a timid but familiar stride. She was followed by two cubs, their small, playful bodies a joy to see. The male lion greeted them with a gentle nuzzle, then gestured with his head back toward the pregnant lioness. The young lioness's eyes, filled with a mixture of curiosity and recognition, settled on the injured mother. She let out a small, questioning mewl. Suddenly the pregnant lioness stirred. She lifted her head and her eyes, still clouded with pain, found the young lioness. A silent understanding passed between them. It was a moment of pure recognition, a familial bond that transcended time and distance. The young lioness, the cubs, and the male lion, the rogue, they were a family. They had been separated, likely by a dominant male, and had been roaming the territory, searching for a safe place to settle. The male lion, a father, had found his mate, his home, and now his firstborn cub. The young lioness and the two playful cubs were her own. This wasn't a random act of kindness. It was a miraculous reunion. A family, shattered by circumstance, had been brought together by an incredible coincidence. A desperate plea for help heard by the one who could answer it. Remember, this story is a fictional drama, a dramatized tale inspired by the incredible events of the wild. If you're enjoying this story, please consider subscribing to the channel to follow the rest of the journey. The pregnant lioness, now protected by her reunited family, began to recover. The jackals, having learned their lesson, did not return. The male lion, whom I began to call Kovu, meaning scar in Swahili, due to a small scar on his left ear, proved to be an exceptional protector and provider. He hunted for his family, ensuring that the recovering lioness had enough to eat. The young lioness, whom I named Casey, meaning born when the weather is good, took on the role of a watchful sister. She and the two cubs, Jua and Mwezi, sun and moon, stayed close to their mother, their presence a constant source of comfort. They would nuzzle her, their soft purrs a soothing balm to her wounds. My patrols became a daily ritual of observation. I would drive by their resting spot, watching from a distance, documenting the incredible bond between them. They moved with an almost perfect synchrony, a testament to the strength of their family. Kovu, the rogue, had become the leader of his own small pride, a unit forged not by force but by love and a shared struggle. The weather changed, a cool front moving in, bringing with it the promise of rain. The savannah, dry and parched, seemed to hold its breath. It was a time of great change, and with it came a sense of new beginnings. The lioness, now fully recovered, was nearing the end of her pregnancy. Her body was heavy with the promise of new life. I spoke with Sarah about the family's incredible story. She too was captivated. We decided to keep a close eye on them, not as rangers, but as silent protectors, ensuring their safety from a distance. Their story was a beacon of hope in a world often dominated by cruelty and the struggle for survival. It was a reminder that even in the most unforgiving of places, kindness and compassion can thrive. The air was thick with the scent of rain. The sky, a bruised purple and grey, rumbled with thunder. I knew the time was near. The pregnant lioness had found a secluded rocky outcrop, a small cave hidden from the elements. Kovu stood guard at the entrance, his powerful form a sentinel against the storm. Kessie and the cubs, tucked safely inside, waited with a quiet anticipation. I watched from a distance, my heart pounding in my chest, a strange mix of anxiety and excitement. The rain began to fall, a steady rhythmic drumming on the roof of my Land Rover. The world outside the cave was a tempest of wind and rain, but inside a new life was about to begin. The hours passed, the storm raged. Then a small, weak cry pierced the air, a sound so tiny, so fragile, yet so full of life. It was followed by another, and then another. A small family, a miracle born in the heart of the storm. Kovu let out a soft, guttural roar, a sound of pride and immense relief. When the rain finally subsided, and the first rays of sunlight broke through the clouds, I drove my Land Rover to a safe distance to observe. Kovu was still at the entrance of the cave, but he allowed Kessie and the cubs to go inside. They emerged a moment later, their faces a mix of awe and wonder. They had seen the new arrivals. The Lioness, exhausted but radiant, lay with her 3 new cubs nestled against her. They were so small, so perfect. It was a sight that filled me with an emotion I couldn't name, a profound sense of joy and gratitude. The Jackals' attack, the near-death experience, the miraculous reunion, it had all led to this moment. The circle of life, a dance of tragedy and triumph, had come full circle. The family was complete. As the weeks turned into months, the little family thrived. The 3 new cubs, 2 males and a female, were named Kito, Gem, Jabari, Brave, and Aisha, Life. They were full of energy, their playful antics a source of endless delight. They would pounce on each other, chasing their tails and tumbling in the tall grass, their tiny roars a charming mimicry of their father's powerful call. Kovu, the rogue-turned-patriarch, was an exceptional father. He taught the cubs to hunt, to track, to understand the rhythm of the savannah. He was patient and firm, a perfect blend of a protector and a teacher. He would often lie in the shade of a large acacia tree, his vigilant eyes sweeping the horizon, while the cubs played around him, their safety assured by his watchful presence. My patrols continued, and I became a silent, ever-present guardian to the pride. I would often see them on my routes, their forms a familiar sight against the backdrop of the African landscape. They were a testament to the resilience of nature and the power of family. I learned to recognize their individual roars, their unique gaits and their personalities. Kessie, the young lioness, was a fierce and loyal sister. She helped her mother care for the younger cubs, her playful demeanor a comfort to them. She had grown stronger, more confident, a worthy heir to her mother's strength. Jua and Mwezi, the older cubs, were proud of their new siblings. They took their roles as older brothers seriously, often showing off their hunting skills to the younger ones. I began to feel a deep connection to this pride. They weren't just animals, they were a family with a story. Their tale of struggle, survival, and a miraculous reunion was a story of hope. It was a story I would carry with me, a reminder that even in the face of insurmountable odds, life finds a way. The dry season arrived with a vengeance. The sun, a relentless orb of fire, baked the earth, turning the savannah into a brittle, golden expanse. The air was heavy, the wind carried the scent of dry tinder, and the threat of fire hung in the air like a shadow. My worst fears were confirmed one afternoon. A small, controlled burn, a fire set by the park authorities to clear out old brush, had gotten out of control. A massive wall of fire, a hungry beast of smoke and flame, was roaring toward the pride's territory. I saw it from a distance, the smoke a black plume against the clear blue sky. My heart sank. I knew the lions would be in grave danger. I radioed for help, but I knew it would take time for the fire crews to reach the area. I had to do something. I jumped into my Land Rover and sped toward the pride's last known location. The wind was picking up, fanning the flames, and the heat was becoming unbearable. The animals, sensing the danger, were already on the move, a panicked exodus of wildebeest, zebras, and antelopes fleeing the inferno. I found the pride near a small riverbed. Kovu was roaring, his voice a frantic command. The lioness, with her 3 young cubs, was trying to guide them toward the river. Kessie and the older cubs were helping, their small bodies a living shield around the younger ones. The fire was close, and the air was thick with ash. Panic was setting in. I drove my Land Rover as close as I dared, honking the horn, hoping to get their attention. Kovu, recognizing my vehicle, looked at me, a silent plea in his eyes. I motioned toward the river, a safe haven from the flames. The Lioness, understanding my signal, began to move the cubs toward the water. It was a race against time, a final, desperate flight for survival. The heat was intense, and the air was filled with the sound of cracking branches and the roar of the fire. The river, a muddy brown ribbon, was their only hope. The older cubs, Jua and Muezi, plunged into the water without hesitation, their young bodies cutting through the current. Casey followed, her eyes fixed on her mother and the younger cubs. The Lioness, however, was hesitant. The new cubs, too young to swim, whimpered in fear. The fire was upon them now, a fiery hand reaching out, consuming everything in its path. Kovu let out a series of deep, guttural roars, a mix of encouragement and command. The Lioness, with a final, desperate cry, nudged her cubs into the water. They began to swim, their small heads bobbing above the surface, their mother a powerful force pushing them forward. Kovu stayed behind, his massive body a final, defiant wall between his family and the flames. He let out a final, earth-shaking roar, a challenge to the inferno. He was giving them time, a chance to escape. I watched in silent awe as the Lioness and her cubs struggled across the river. The current was strong, and the younger cubs were beginning to falter. Kessie, seeing their struggle, swam back, nudging them with her nose, guiding them to the safety of the other bank. The family finally reached the other side, exhausted, but safe. I turned my attention back to Kovu. He was still there, a silhouette against the backdrop of the fire. He let out a final, triumphant roar, and then he turned and plunged into the river, a graceful, powerful dive into the murky water. He emerged on the other side, his body a mix of exhaustion and relief. The family was safe, reunited once more. They had faced the most primal of threats and had emerged victorious, their bond stronger than ever. After the fire subsided, the savannah was a desolate landscape of ash and charred wood. It was a somber sight, a stark reminder of the wild's unforgiving nature. But even in this devastation, there was a quiet promise of renewal. The first rains would soon come, and new life would rise from the ashes. The Pride, now safe on the other side of the river, began to rebuild their lives. They had lost their home, but they had not lost each other. They found a new territory, a lush, green valley that had been spared from the fire. It was a place of abundance, a second chance for a family that had faced so much. I continued to visit them, watching from a distance as they settled into their new home. The cubs were growing, their bodies stronger, their personalities more defined. They were no longer the fragile, whimpering creatures I had first seen. They were strong, confident lions, a testament to the love and protection of their family. Kovu, the rogue, had found his purpose. He was no longer just a wanderer. He was a king, a protector, a father. The scar on his ear was a reminder of his past, but his presence was a testament to his future. He had found his place in the world, a place he had fought for and won. The Lioness, the one who had almost died at the hands of the Jackals, was a picture of strength and resilience. She had faced death and had emerged a mother, a survivor, a queen. She had her family, her mate, and a new home. Her story was not one of tragedy, but one of triumph. Years passed. The savannah, once charred and lifeless, had been reborn. The grass was tall and green, the trees were lush and full, and the air was filled with the sound of life. I was older now, my face a roadmap of a life spent in the sun and dust of the Serengeti, but my spirit was young, thanks to the memories of a special family. The cubs had grown into magnificent lions. Quito and Jabari, the young males, were now a force to be reckoned with. They were strong, proud, and fiercely loyal to their family. Aisha, the female, was a beautiful and graceful lioness, a perfect reflection of her mother. Jayua and Muezi, the older cubs, had found their own mates and had started their own prides, their legacy a testament to their strength and resilience. Kovu and the Lioness, their bodies a testament to a life lived fully, watched over their growing family with a quiet pride. Their story had become a legend among the rangers, a tale of a miracle, a testament to the power of a family's love. I was the keeper of that story, the only one who had seen it all unfold from the beginning. I often think about that night. The night the jackals attacked, the night I thought all hope was lost. But in the end, it wasn't an end at all. It was a new beginning for a family, a new beginning for a pride, a new beginning for a legend. And as I drive my Land Rover through the vast, endless landscape, I know their story will live on, a whispered tale among the ancient trees, a testament to the power of family and the miracles that happen when you least expect them.